Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blue Suck. Again, John, Dave, and myself. We're going to look back over Leinster's victory against the Dragons, Ireland's victory against Italy, and look forward to our big game against France and all the other World Cup action. So, boys, we get Leinster one out of the way first. 37-13 against the Dragons, 4 tries. Look like we can. Our back line knows how to run rather than chase a load of box kicks.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great, great to see it. It's quite positive. I mean, okay, if you look at it, the stats, beating the Dragons and getting 4 tries is not like, well, before last season, beating the Dragons and getting 4 tries would not have been jump up and down screaming material, but they all looked very good. There was hardly a bad player in there that you'd pick out and go, oh, they were shocking. The worst person on the field was probably pretty competent. Fergus McFadden looked really getting stuck in there. They all looked like they were. Pretty much everybody had a good game. Is still a god.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's only the Dragons who beat us twice last year, but it's we seem to be coming into form with all the guys away at the World Cup, which no harm in that.
Yeah, well, the late change to the selection brought Rhys Ruddock in for a start, and he was excellent. He really was. And what you had a situation where, okay, I thought Luke McGrath was very good, but we leave him to one side just for a sec. I thought that 7, 8, 10, 12, 13 were absolutely superb. They really, really were.
Van der Fleer was the other guy I'd pick out.
I thought he was excellent. Yeah. But that whole kind of, if you like, that middle five, if you like, of the team, I thought were really, really good. I thought that you can see a real partnership between Reid and Teo.
Yeah, developing now.
I thought you look at a couple of the tries that were scored and the interplay between the two of them and the lines they're taking off one another, absolutely superb.
Yeah, it's Reid is improving severely. You'd have to wonder how it's all going to fit back together when the lads arrive back, when Sexton and Madigan come back. Where are they both? Well, where is Madigan going to play? Yeah.
And one thing I thought, I'd said it last week after the game against Cardiff, whilst I thought Cathal Marsh was good, I didn't think he was. Well, I thought he was proficient after the game against Cardiff. I didn't think he'd really stamped himself on the game. I think he stamped himself on the game on Saturday. You could with an out half, you need to see the out half's personality on the park, And I wondered maybe was Cathal Marsh perhaps a bit quiet, a bit young, a bit inexperienced, not a bit of it.
No.
He was the boss out there. You could tell
very
that
confident.
He structured that game. The way the game was played was around the way he structured it.
No, I think he looked, and the other guy's supposed to be better, the younger guy.
I would have been a Ross Byrne guy. I would have thought that Ross Byrne would have been the better option of the two. Now, obviously, one game doesn't change anything or doesn't change everything. Well, but it's certainly not the way I thought it was, or as clear as I thought it was previously.
The only time I saw Ross Byrne was in the under-20s, and he looked great, but I would have thought Marsh has certainly earned his shot.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And he looks like that controlling kind of an out half that can really boss a game and get the best out of the guys around him, rather than be the star of the show, rather than like a Felipe Contepomi out half who's gonna just do mad stuff and rip it up. He just looks like a guy who can control everything. Great pass, well able to put other people into space, well able to control the game that way, as well as controlling it with his boot. So yeah, it's all good. If we've got him and the other guys is even as good, well, hey, the future's bright.
Then I thought Luke McGrath.
In his case, the future's orange.
Yeah, I thought Luke McGrath played very well as well. But I took him out of that because I wanted to single out the other guys. So I thought Van der Fleer was very unlucky not to get man of the match. And I thought when himself and Levy came on at the end, the two of them there, it was very interesting, kind of perhaps a hint to the future.
Well, Van der Fleer has whatever all the good players have, time on the ball. When he gets the ball, it's like he has an extra few.
Yeah, reminds me of Keith Gleeson when he first came over.
That's exactly who he's like.
And
that's exactly it.
I remember years ago, maybe it must be 10 years ago, I went to a match in Donnybrook and said, myself and my friend that I went with, we said, let's not watch the match, let's just watch Gleeson. And we didn't miss much of the match because he was always at the ball, But Gerv was made permanent backs coach for the next this season and next year, so it gives a bit of solidity in the coaching.
Is it 2 seasons or is it just the rest of this season?
No, the end of 2017.
End of next season.
Oh, end of 27.
Yeah,
Okay,
September.
cool. Yeah. You'd wonder, is that a selection because nobody else is interested, or is that a positive selection? I would see it as a positive selection, and I think the guy's done a great job with the A team and everywhere he's been, to be honest. But the only thing that worries me is you've no external input, like you've no other coaching input from other elsewhere on the planet to kind of balance the ideas. Now that may not be a bad thing. We don't know, but that's the only downside I can see is we're a little bit too insular.
We were told that, and we discussed on this show that when O'Connor went, sure, wouldn't there be a queue of lads down to Clonskee Road waiting to the job? We'd have Robbie Deans fighting over Ewan McKenzie in a first blood match, And it didn't turn out that way, and it was
we
never.
don't know, Dave. Like, we don't know whether there was somebody in line for
I don't think
the
it was
curling
ever going to be that way for a number of reasons. And I don't think it was ever going to be one of those reasons. I don't think Leinster Rugby were interested in that. They've never gone that way. I mean, Matt O'Connor was the highest profile candidate that they'd appointed, and it didn't exactly work out. So I think they were going to go the same way.
Each time they've done it, they've seemed to have done it a bit differently. They haven't followed a pre-described.
No, there's no. This is how you do it.
Yeah, they went for the low key checker, then they went for kind of an assistant guy when they went with Schmidt, and then they went to the Leicester Tigers head coach, and then they've gone internally with Leo. Now, Leo probably got the job 2 years too soon in reality, but he's got it and he ain't going to turn it down.
I'd still like to see another forwards coach in there. I just would. We still can't maul the ball. Sorry, we just can't. I mean, it's not even open for discussion at this stage. We are incapable of putting together a coherent maul. You watch Ireland last week or you watch Ireland next week, and if it's whether it's a long body maul or a short maul, you'll still be able to throw a blanket over them. It's just which way you orient the blanket. Whereas our mauls with Leinster are shambolic.
Well, Fogarty's come in though. So
he's more a scrum coach, isn't he, rather than
scrum? I know, but I'm sure he has some influence.
You have to give these guys time, but I'm still not overly convinced that it's got. I mean, we've lost Richie Murphy now. We've lost what the half of Richie Murphy that we had.
But Dave, look at
and he's not been replaced. No.
Look at the quantity of Leinster forwards that are missing because of the World Cup.
So,
so essentially, the forwards that you're slagging off are a bunch of kids.
I'm slagging off the coaches, not the players.
I know, but it's the way that they're implementing the coaches' training. Are the bunch of kids that are coming up through the academy? It's what he can only work with the ingredients that he's got.
Oh, I agree entirely.
I wouldn't say that. Like a bunch of kids, there's a fair few heavy hitters in there. There's Mike McCarthy, Rhys Ruddock. Guys like Van der Fleer, we've just been bigging up as what they are.
I'm just saying that there's a large proportion of the Irish pack is from Leinster, who are currently over in England.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a valid point, but I still think that it is disturbing that in the last 18 months we haven't put together not really any good mauling. I mean, it's part of the game. Look, it's neither here nor there. I mean, we talk about Van der Fleer. Like Van der Fleer actually wasn't the highest profile of the guys that were around his time in the academy. If you think of himself, Dan Levy and Jordan Coughlin, he was Jordan Coughlin's a bit older and Dan Levy I think is a bit older as well, but he was the guy with the lowest profile. But if you look back, Van der Fleer has played consistently and been consistently selected on every single team he's been available for, all throughout the age grades. He's one of those guys that's just like Keith Gleeson. Coaches love him.
Yeah.
He just does the simple things extremely well.
And he can carry well. He can
link.
coach. He can link. He has it all. I think he's he's the Shane Jennings replacement right there.
Well, he might get a chance. I know one of the other back rows, Jack Cohen, was on crutches. I don't know how bad that injury is, but Van der Fleer might get more game time.
It happened in the warm up, I think, didn't it? Yeah, so that's not a good sign. It was over his ankle, I think.
They had to bring Ruddock back in, it was a bad replacement for him.
That's true.
The guy I felt sorry for was Martin Moore. Actually, came back after a long layoff and then had to go off with a head knock.
Yeah.
But at least it's not the same injury again, which it could. Ruddock had to go off with a sore one as well, and it looked to be the arm that had been injured before.
He was just right on the full time whistle, and I don't know whether he was lying down. He looked in a lot of pain, but I didn't hear any update on it.
No.
Well, we've 2 weeks before we have to play a game, so
yeah. Well, I suppose some of the other results, like Connacht beat Cardiff, which was a good result for them.
Yeah.
I
think they got a bonus point too, didn't they?
Yeah.
I think they did, the 36-31. Ulster hammered Treviso. I don't know.
Kells Priest.
Yeah.
Last year's champion, Glasgow, were beaten by Munster.
Just
about, yeah.
Glasgow were missing 26 players. That's a
Yeah.
huge amount. That's
With
10
few
more than
injuries.
we are. You
And
know?
Munster have 5 with Ireland.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah.
that's not so good for Munster, and Munster were at home. Having said that, they are joint top of the log.
Well, that's it. You see, there's no asterisk beside the Munster's points table. You know, that's what it comes
That's
down to. You know,
But there's 3 teams now: Scarlets, Edinburgh, and Munster, are all unbeaten.
Mhm.
Actually, interesting. Connacht are on 4th. They've got 11 points, only one behind
Yeah.
because of the bonus point
And
situation.
5th and 6th are on 10 points. So basically, you could throw a blanket over the points at the
Yeah.
top of between the top 6.
well, there's
Then you have
is
your,
good.
you have a few of your usual suspects down the bottom of the table: Treviso and
Of course.
Zebre.
it'll unwind. It's like if you remember that year we had the free week with the remember that season we had the points for the free week. You didn't play the week and you got 3 points or 4 points. It was a stupid system. But anyway,
Yeah. It was because we had an uneven amount of teams. I think.
yeah, it took to the end of the season for everything to unwind.
Yeah.
So it's not exactly the same, but it will take a while for everything to unwind once all the players come back and everybody gets settled in, etc., etc. It won't really be until January or February, I think, until you get a more accurate picture of the entire table. With just one more thing that was Ian McKinley made his comeback for
yeah, it was
Zebre
great
in the
news
Pro
for him,
12,
wasn't it?
came on as a fullback,
Yeah.
which is just, I mean, people talk about it, you know,
There's a Cinderella story.
a,
sort of,
yeah, a
isn't it?
Roy of the Rovers type of thing. That really is it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Especially, you know, when he was coming through so well for Leinster and just cruelly robbed in a freak accident, and now he can manage to cope with the goggles.
And when's he going to qualify for Italy?
He probably already does, if you think about
He'd
it.
be near enough to it, I'd suggest. Yeah.
Well, that brings us on to the,
Oh,
the
nice,
match.
nice link
segue,
there,
wasn't it?
Jason. Very
I
smooth.
know, Des line him here, you know. But like Ireland, Italy, like we were all over at it, and it was going to look like a fantastic day when we got there. Beautiful sunny
was.
day,
Lying on the grass, drinking beer,
Yeah.
watching Argentina.
absolutely.
Where would you get it?
Diego
it-
Maradona going nuts.
It's great. It just shows how welcoming the English are. They're holding the World Cup, so they postponed summer for us. You know, it was very nice of them. Great day, lovely day, interesting new stadium, rubbish match.
Yeah. But like it was, I don't know what happened. It just when you went in, the atmosphere just seemed to die, and
It did.
like
And the team didn't do much to ignite it.
no, I think they go hand in hand,
Yeah.
you know. But like where we were 7 rows. We were in row G. We were 7 rows from the front of the stadium on the 22,
Right.
and we were about 30 yards from the pitch. And when I turned around, like the slope of the stands just went up and up and up and up. It didn't go above me; just went right the way back.
Yeah.
So the people at the back of that stand must have been 70 or 80 meters
A good bit away.
from the sideline.
We were up on the
It's quite flat.
up
yeah.
up on the what's nominally, I suppose, the second tier of it. Because it's not really a tier as such. It's just the way it ordered. But we were up there. I mean, yeah, we were quite a considerable distance back. But I mean, the sight lines were great.
Yeah.
No part of the pitch you couldn't see in perfect detail, and you had the screens and everything. But yeah, no, you're right. Having the crowd that far away from the pitch, it never helps. Having the team play, both teams indeed play with such limited ambition, doesn't help either. I mean, we've got through 3 games in the World Cup. We've won all 3 of them, and we haven't even had to play any rugby.
No.
Well, look, this is the thing, right? Okay, we can all be negative over how crap we were in that game.
Oh, I don't think I don't want to.
but-
I don't think we were negative. I don't think being negative about how crap we were. I think we did what we needed to win it
Yeah.
without giving any hostages to fortune in terms of our future opposition.
That's about the most positive thing you can say about the game itself. But if you look at it this way, we have, if Jared Payne is truly fit, like they say he is, we have 31 fit players going into the real World Cup.
Yeah.
Because the real World Cup starts here, guys. You know, this is the match we've been looking forward to for
But like as you say, the World Cup
months
does.
at this
The
stage.
World Cup does start here. But if we have ambitions to get to a semi-final or a final, the team has to improve the way it's been playing. And I think it's after creating loads more questions on what our best 15 is. Like, you
Yeah.
know, would you not agree? Like, I mean, first of all, I think is he going to pick Healy to start? Is he going to pick Toner or Henderson? Is he going to pick, what back row is he going to go at? What centre combination? Then obviously that's got a knock-on effect for the 2
I don't really think it matters whether he picks Healy or McGrath to start. I don't really think it matters whether he picks Toner or Henderson to start in terms of the bigger picture. The problem we've had, and it's been obvious all along, is that it's the centres. We don't have. We've lost two massive quality centres over the last couple of years. We don't. We said it a few times before. We don't have the caps in the centres, and what Joe Schmidt seems to have tried to do is to get Henshaw and Payne playing as much together and get them as many caps together as he possibly could, because there's no going back. If they're fit, they're our centre pairing. We've got brilliant halfbacks. We've got really good pack. The wingers are pretty good. Carney, if he's fit, is one of the best fullbacks in the world. The problem is the centres. Everywhere else we're okay.
And the thing is, I mean, you say that, and yes, he has been trying to. He's been kind of. They've
both been injured.
It's like an
at the
arranged
wrong
marriage
time.
where the couple have been forced together over a number of years. But the reason for that is it all comes down to next weekend.
Yeah.
We've known for the last 4 years that it's all coming down to this weekend, and that's why he's doing it.
Certainly 3 of them anyway.
Joe Schmidt doesn't leave things to chance. Things don't happen by accident. I mean, we've all seen it, and we've talked about it ad nauseum. People are probably sick and talking about what an immaculate planner in general, etc., etc. Joe Schmidt is, but things don't happen by accident in his teams. Mm-hmm. They happen for a reason, and he builds it up, and he plans it, years in advance. He's been planning this campaign.
He couldn't have planned for Payne to have an injured foot, or he couldn't have planned for Henshaw to have been out for the first 2 matches. And really, it goes to show how weak we are at centre. Because first of all, Keith Earls is not and never will be an international standard centre.
No,
he can get away with it.
No, he's not.
At Pro 12 or even against Italy, where even under pressure he can't distribute the ball. When we start playing, as you say, when the World Cup proper starts, when we start playing France, Argentina / New Zealand, South Africa,
he won't
Australia.
be picking Keith Earls in the centre against those two
Dave,
teams.
Dave, if Payne or Henshaw gets injured, he might have to.
He has other options as well. He brought other options with him.
Well, he did. He brought Darren Cave, who's kind of a bit more workmanlike, but he's probably a bit more solid in defence.
He brought Luke Fitzgerald. He has other options there. I think he wanted to try this option because we've got into the game. Like I said, we are now at this whole World Cup. This is the phony war. The phony war is over now. This is the real thing, and we've got all the kind of the messing around and the selections and everything's done now. I say we'll go into this match, and I doubt that the selection will be radically different, with the possible exception of the Henderson selection from the selections we saw during the World Cup, during the Six Nations in the last 2 years. I don't see them being radically different at all. I think our back 3 will be Tommy Bowe, Rob Kearney and Keith Earls. I think our centres will be the 2 lads we talked about. I don't see him making many changes at all.
I think Kearney might come in for Earls.
For Earls?
Sorry, not for Earls, sorry. For Bowe. Sorry, for Bowe.
Well,
I'd be more inclined to believe that he'd bring Kearney in for Earls, and I don't think he will, because Earls has deserved his place. He's been the best winger, possibly, with the exception of Van der Merwe in the group. Certainly for Ireland.
I think that
but he might go big lads. He does like big lads.
He's a great winger, but he might have been robbed of a starting wing spot by his performance at 13, because he didn't look great defensively at 13. He didn't have the organisation, I don't think, that Payne has. He's a much sharper player.
Did whoever replaced him on the wing play that much better than Earls had played on the wing? No. So I would suggest that Earls will play, and I know that Joe likes big guys. He does 2 big wingers, but I do think Earls has played in such a way as his selection is undeniable. Yeah.
Well, it seems to be Dave Kearney, him and Tommy Bowe are going to be it'll be unusual if Luke Fitzgerald got in ahead of Tommy Bowe.
No, it'll be perm 2 from those 3.
Yeah.
And it'll be Robert fullback.
The other one will be on at 23.
Yeah, it'll be between Luke and Zebo, I think, for 23.
Well, will it? Will it not be between whoever loses out between the 3 wingers?
No, because I think he'll want cover in a number of positions. I think Luke gives him that. Luke and Zebo give him more cover.
Tommy Bowe can play in the centre.
Earls gives him that as well.
He played for the Lions there.
Yes. Keith Earls played fullback for the Lions. Doesn't make any difference.
Not in the test match, though.
So I think that
That's where the messing around is going to come. You know,
I think most of the
Wings
fidgeting
at
will be on.
23.
Yeah, I think that the rest of the team pretty much has picked itself.
Madigan's going to be 22. Owen Redden's going to be 21. You know, there's
Yeah.
will he shuffle things around and put Henderson at 6? Probably not.
No.
O'Mahony probably deserved. I mean, he did make a great try saving tackle, but he managed to stress the whole Irish nation out by getting sent off with 8 minutes to go. Like that was not.
But
the
I
way
think
we want
I think
to
the
be in a
positives
one-score
far
game.
outweigh the negatives. In one moment of madness, to the absolute monster of work that he did for the rest of the match. Like he put in try saving tackles. He one line out ball on their throw.
Yeah.
He tackled his arse off, and okay, he made a.
So did Sean O'Brien though.
Oh, look at it. You know.
The thing is, I mean, people often overlook what O'Mahony does because sometimes he has to play in different ways.
I think the one unit within that team that ain't going to change. Well, that on the halfbacks is the back row.
I think
Those five.
I think it, no. I wouldn't be. I'd be 99% certain of it, but I wouldn't be quite so sure that a spanner mightn't be thrown in the works that wouldn't be Henderson shaped. He might decide to go with Henry and O'Brien, for example. You never know. But I think that people
I think Sean O'Brien had one of his worst games for Ireland.
he was still the stats king, and that's the thing about him.
But I mean, stats are stats. Like,
But you just discussed a whole lot of stats for Peter O'Mahony, all the tackles he made, etc.
but it's what he does on the pitch, Dave.
But
Not,
that's what
not
my
a
point.
bunch of.
That's what I'm saying. He often the point I was going to make is that there are games where Peter O'Mahony doesn't make very many tackles, right? But there's a reason for that. It's because he is holding himself back to be second man
Coaching
in.
in,
When Sean O'Brien was at his peak or his pomp in 2011, 2012, he was running off the shoulder of someone like, say, Cronin making a break and popping it to him, or Strauss. He seems to be receiving the ball, first receiver now,
Yeah,
and he
standing
doesn't
still.
seem to be, and he's standing still, and he doesn't seem to be getting the same momentum and go forward. Whereas before he was absolutely unstoppable. If you think back to the match against Northampton in the Millennium Stadium final, like he was unstoppable that day.
There's three factors there. One, his injuries that have mounted up on him over the years. You know, but I don't know if he's quite as reckless with his body as he was back then, because he was just run through a brick wall. Then there's also the fact that everybody has worked him out at this time. You know, if the ball has gone anywhere near him, somebody, you know, two guys are probably in there trying to rub him out. You know, so.
And the third factor is nobody in an Irish team goes galloping anywhere anymore. We don't play that kind of game anymore.
He didn't really play for Leinster. Hasn't played for Leinster for quite some time either.
But we don't. That's not how the game is played at the moment. Now we might see a change around, because I've noticed in this World Cup. This World Cup is the offloading seems to be a bit more prevalent.
We seem to be standing still, and all the other countries, or a lot of the other, not all the other, but a lot of the other countries are redeveloping their game plan, whereas ours has seemingly stayed quite static. And if you, like, the first two matches don't count, they're against Mickey Mouse opposition. Last week's match was against a team, not a very good team, but a Six Nations team, and we reverted back to type what we did. And you know, it's great to say, I remember saying it last year, it's great to say as Irish people, oh God, it's great that we're winning, but my God, it's dour rubbish. And if Declan Kidney was in charge of that team, it'd be all slagging it off.
Well, that's the
But
thing.
So
St.
you've got to
Joe
play
is-
with what you've got, and we've got a big hole in the centre. So you've got to work around that. You can't have an all singing, all dancing, throwing the ball around team that doesn't have enough experience in the centre.
Well, let's say if you've got two left feet and two flat singers in the centre, there's nothing you can do about it. But the other side of it is,
They're not-
if
they're not left either,
Ireland
but they're
if
just not
Ireland
experienced.
play exactly like we played against Italy in 3 more matches with the same result, everybody be delighted, because we'll have won the World Cup.
Yeah, but if we play like we played against Italy, against France, we lose. If we played like that against South Africa or Argentina, or even England,
Well, that's the other side of it. I mean, at the end of the day, if we don't get to a semi-final, you'd have to look at Joe's position.
You reckon?
Well, that's the standard we held Declan Kidney to, and it's the standard we held Eddie O'Sullivan to.
Yeah, I don't know whether by
We'll see.
semi-final, an Irish team has never got to a semi-final.
Exactly.
But if getting out of the group at the quarter-final is like.
But didn't we consider the last World Cup a failure because we lost in the quarter-final?
No, because it was the furthest we've ever got was a quarter-final.
I don't think it was considered a failure.
No,
I think
I would say it would.
winning against Australia.
It was the way we went
in this-
out against
in this
Wales.
Yeah.
That was the only.
And the
black
previous
spot.
year, the previous time was the way we went out against France.
Which we
Winning.
didn't get
Or
out of a
in
group.
in 2003. Sorry, and it was the way we went out against France.
Petered out.
Yeah, but that's it. You see, we always peter out. It's time to stop petering out. It's time to just win the second, or at least get to a semi-final. I mean, it's...
Well, you don't mind if you lose, but go down swinging.
Yeah.
The worrying thing, though, about it, what I think...
I'd rather stay on my feet.
What I think we're going to see is, I don't think we're all of a sudden going to just start going mad and offloading the ball. I think our game might be a little bit more open, but it's not, there's still going to be a lot of kicking, there's still going to be it's going to be a lot of deception and trying to make the French do what we want them to do, and then going for the jugular. There won't be loose play. Somebody was saying during the week about
but you have to
if you're going to turn into an offloading team, you have to have somebody doing trailing runs rather than getting set up to go into a ruck, which if you've been conditioned to do that, you can't just switch, you can't just turn it on.
And I appreciate that, but you have to show some ambition,
of course.
And if you look at, like, you think, going back to, say, the way England played in the World Cup when they won it in 2003, they didn't show any great ambition. They were a kicking team. Mm-hmm. But this team... It suited them, but look at the pack that they had. Like, they had a very old, rumbling pack, whereas we can play that way. This team has... Or not this team, but these players have played in an offensive fashion. Previously, whether it's for Ulster, they played some nice rugby. Leinster, when Joe Schmidt was playing, but the way that, as you say, they're conditioned to play a very conservative game plan, it's great while we're winning, but at some stage we're going to lose, and then
that's it. The wheels are going to come off. If we lose, and if we lose, as you say, playing that kind of way, the wheels will come off the wagon, as it were. But if we keep winning, they won't. And I think, but that's the thing. I mean, Joe is there to win. That's what he's there for. He's there to win the World Cup. He's there to win the Six Nations. He's won the last two Six Nations. I know that.
He's there to do it with the tools he's got in the best way he can.
If you were to be absolutely brutal, like, Welsh commentators have been less than kind to Joe Schmidt in terms of, he's won 2 Six Nations, but he's lost the key games each time. But he's won 2 Six Nations, and that's really all that matters at the end of the day. He's won the championship both times. If he wins the World Cup, which I think this team is capable of doing under his coaching, then I don't think it'll be particularly remembered how it was won.
I think we're still outsiders. Some commentators are putting us in the top 3 most likely people to win the World Cup. I find it very hard to see past Australia.
I think it's certainly got a lot harder when I saw what Czech has done with the Australian team.
Yeah, in the final, it's most unlikely. It could in fact go that the 4 Southern Hemisphere rugby championship teams are the 4 semi-finalists. That's quite conceivable. I mean, Wales and ourselves are really the only ones in with a shout to upset that dominance. Or France, I suppose there's 3 in there. But I would give, whoever gets the All Blacks out of us in France is going no further.
Well, I guarantee you the All Blacks will want to see France, because the one team that All Blacks fear and French don't.
Yeah, but the French are not the French team that the All Blacks would have been fearing over the past 30 years. They really aren't. I think they're easy enough to work out. Now they've had a lot of time together, and
they'll be fit.
They'll be fit, and they'll be they'll have a lot more coherence than they would have had.
And they haven't been rowing.
I
mean, that's French. You put 21 Frenchmen in the room, and no row.
They're limited in their.
Well, they've started picking on Sexton now. Do you see that?
Yeah, sure. That's the phony war before the match started.
No, but like what they've done is they've kind of put their emphasis on an external factor rather than an internal factor. Which previous seasons you might have had Shabal throwing some sort of wobbler with somebody else in the squad.
The only thing is they picked the wrong guy in terms of mental strength. Maybe that might be grand. That's probably grand. No, well, you're right. It's probably for the home consumption. Because it's not going to have any effect on Sexton. No. But it's probably for home consumption, all right. Yeah, no, that's a fair point.
But England limping out of their own World Cup was pretty sad. I think we all said it was probably a bad thing for the tournament, and we would have rather that group was still alive.
Yeah, but like you were talking about, say the quality of rugby that's being played. If you are a person that's more interested in darts than rugby, Yeah. Which team would you say was more interesting to watch, England or Australia?
Oh, absolutely, Australia.
So for the
of course.
benefit of the tournament, regardless of whether it's going to have any influence, like at this stage,
Pooper alone is worth the
they've
ticket.
already sold the Romania against Georgia match or the Canada against Namibia, whatever. You know, the kind of the smaller nations matches can still go and fill.
Smaller nations matches are going great, actually.
They
Yeah,
are. That's what I
yeah,
mean.
yeah.
That's what I mean. Whereas it doesn't matter now because you're now getting into the quarterfinals. Every one of those is going to be sold. There's no need for.
There's no need for England anymore.
Really. And if you're going to watch a rugby match, I'd rather spend 150 quid and watch Australia play than the dour rubbish that England were playing.
That's true. I mean, you know, they're kind of getting what they deserve, all right. But you know, Czechia playing a blinder.
Yeah.
Czechia is just.
But
It's funny if you contrast the two coaches. They both came into teams that had a bad attitude and needed a kick in the hole.
Both delivered.
The kick in the hole, but when the kick in the hole had been delivered, Stuart Lancaster had nothing else other than, you know, his great work on the culture and da. He didn't have any great ideas, whereas Czechia seems that he does. You know,
Well,
he's probably got better players too.
Czechia is one of the world's great coaches now. I mean, he's won the Super Rugby.
Yeah.
He's won the Heineken
Right.
Cup. He's beaten New Zealand with Australia. Now he's beaten England with Australia, which is a big thing for them. You know, he's elevated himself up that greasy pole, as it were. Yeah. England, that's it. Stuart Lancaster was able to deliver an England team that was at least respectful and honest to itself, but no more.
Well, it seems to be
But
falling
they just
apart.
made a mess of everything, didn't they?
Yeah, that's
like their selection policy was they just made it complete.
Dreadful.
They got it wrong.
Their
They got it wrong.
substitutions, you know, like against Wales, they took off the wrong man, or they wrote on the wrong man, perhaps.
Compare and contrast Joe Schmidt with Stuart Lancaster in terms of selections in the centre. You know, Joe Schmidt, as we said, is trying to get the two guys that he's pinning his hopes on, the best he's got, to play as many matches together. What's Stuart Lancaster doing? I don't think I'll throw this guy in now. I think I'll throw this guy
The
in.
other side of that is,
Maybe I should mix these two, or maybe I shouldn't.
who do you think feels better waking up the morning of a match? Payne and Henshaw, or Slade,
X and
Burgess, Burrell, Farrell, whoever for England? Payne and Henshaw know that they're their coach's guys. They know the coach believes in them. They know that the coach, who they know is a great coach, has faith in them. None of the English centres, no matter who's picked, they don't know whether they're going to be still there at half time. And that's a big thing. That kind of consistency of selection, the fact that your coach believes in you, is a big thing. Lancaster, even it went too far for him. He was a great guy to do a job up to a certain point.
That's it.
And the point was past maybe
2 years ago.
I wouldn't quite go that far, maybe 12 months ago.
Seems to be rumours coming out. That
Remember, they beat New Zealand.
Yeah.
You know,
they did.
Stuart Lancaster's England
That's
beat
2
New
years ago.
Zealand.
Yeah.
You know,
There seems to be a lot of dirty laundry coming out to be washed now.
There's a few little tales coming out, but some of them aren't really that accurate. I mean,
no, but there's ones like
Kat and Cipriani having a big
exactly,
match.
yeah, you know, and then sort of has Farrell had too much of an influence within the team?
I think that the newspapers have had 3 days of blaming Lancaster, and now they need to blame. Now they need to blame someone else. It's Farrell, and then in a couple of days' time it'll be Cat, and then it'll be Graham Roundtree. They're good. The English papers love a target, and they've got plenty to choose from. I think at the end of the day, the entire English coaching team is going to change after this World Cup anyway.
Definitely.
Because it has to. The only thing is, I don't know who they're going to replace him with.
Well, the front runner is Eddie Jones, according to everybody. So he's even come up and said that, I haven't actually signed for the Stormers yet, or is it the Stormers or the Sharks? I can't remember. But he said that he's available.
Is he not in charge of the new Japanese franchise in Super Rugby? I thought he was.
He definitely isn't. No.
I thought he was.
He was going in to do. I can't remember if it's the Sharks or the Stormers, but he was going to Super Rugby in South Africa.
He likes it in South Africa. He's been successful there in the past. Yeah.
He'd be a great England coach if they could see their way to appointing him.
He'd be great anyone coach.
Yeah.
No, but the thing about it is that the big danger for English rugby is that it tears itself apart too much over this. You can spend too much time gazing at your navel. They lost. They made some bad decisions. Clear deck. Get over it. Next World Cup's in 4 years' time. That's all they can do from their perspective.
Yeah.
Well, at least the Premiership, which starts back in a couple of weeks, will have all the top players playing for them. So.
That's what the fans want.
Yeah.
So anyway, England's next match is against Uruguay, and after Uruguay's game the other night.
Do they have any players left?
They won't be standing back anyway.
No.
But it's terrible. It's in Manchester City Stadium, and
Yeah.
none of, a lot of I get the impression looking at the ticketing website that a lot of English people have handed back tickets, not just for that game but for semis.
Apparently,
they're all for sale now. Semis,
secondary
quarters.
market secondary market ticketing companies like Viagogo, for example, have reported this as been a catastrophe, which
Yeah.
delights me, quite frankly.
Would do.
Would
delight you when it would happen.
Yeah, and it is delightful. I mean, they are basically legitimised touts. But this has been a disaster for them. I mean, there was a figure posited of 3 billion. Now, it was a nice headline figure, and it made everyone go, "Oh my God, England won it, cost 3 billion." And it was based on the fact that if England had won the World Cup, the feel good factor would have boosted the stock exchange a couple of points, and that would have. Now that's not going to happen. That's about 3 billion. That's what the when you read into the story, it's not
Okay.
actually. It's going to cost us 3 billion, but it is going to cost them money. I mean, there's ITV have lost 40% on all their ad sales now because England aren't going to be involved. Their ad values have dropped by 40%. I mean, stuff like that. It does have a knock on effect.
Well, they have a thing on the ticketing site where you can actually resell your ticket. So if you've got too many tickets, or if you're just an English fan and are too depressed to go to any of the games that England are not going to be in, you can resell your ticket. So in the last couple of days, a Gansey load of semi-final and quarter-final tickets have appeared out of nowhere, and I reckon that's what most of them are because you couldn't. Semi-final tickets have been sold out for ever.
I would suggest that World Rugby now are praying for a home nations, for want of a better phrase, team to make at least one of them to make the semis.
Yeah, well, it's
Put some bums on seats.
It's only us or Wales in there now, really.
Yeah.
Scotland, if they do get, if they get through the, which they look likely to,
Well, they play
South Africa or
Samoa.
they're playing Samoa, but Australia will take care of them. Isn't it Australia they're playing them?
Yeah.
Australia will beat Wales and take care of Scotland, I'd say, and that will put Wales up against South Africa.
Mhm.
So that'd be my feeling on how things are going to go there. Be amazing if Wales turned them over, though, wouldn't it? The Aussies.
I just don't.
I-
The only way that
I
happens.
sat here
is
2
the
weeks
only way
ago.
that happens is if Australia go into that game completely complacent, and that doesn't happen to Michael Cheika team.
I sat here 2 weeks ago and said if Wales get anywhere out of this with all their injuries and all their, I'll be really impressed with them. So, so far, I am really impressed with them. We'll see how they go on Saturday. If they can keep Australia,
They made heavy weather of it against Fiji, didn't they?
they didn't make any. Australia didn't get a bonus point against Fiji.
No.
England
Well-
just about did.
That brings us to another point, if you like. The gap has narrowed. Maybe not the gap, but the competitiveness of teams has come closer together. I mean, we've seen, with the exception of today's game between the United States and South Africa, we haven't seen any of the big wallopings that have happened in previous World Cups. I was thinking about it the other night, actually, after watching the Canada game, Canada-Romania. Canada haven't won a match in this World Cup, but Canada have looked great in the World Cup. They've played some really good rugby. They've, perhaps the other best winger we talked about earlier, DTH Van der Merwe, has looked like one of the stars of the tournament. Well done, Scarlets.
Yeah.
So there's you look at them. As we record this, Georgia and Namibia is in play, so we're not going to talk about that. But other games throughout the tournament, we talked about
Japan.
Japan.
Japan have a chance to come out. With
Japan gave Samoa a bit of a doing.
They did, and that's sort of one kind of change, I suppose, in the traditional rankings. That you would have always said that Samoa were obviously would have been heavily influenced by New Zealand and maybe some Australian players, whereas Japan seemed, well, obviously they're still influenced by New Zealand and Australian players, but they've seemed to have superseded them now, even in rankings. They beat them quite well. They beat them 26-5.
There's a couple of things have happened as well. Italy and Romania are going to play a game to decide who's going to be third in the group. And being third in the group is quite important because it means you don't have to qualify for the next World Cup. So you would assume that the 10 countries that are in the top two competitions, i.e. the Six Nations and the Rugby Championship, those 10 teams you would imagine plus 2 others. Now it could be plus 3 others if Italy lose out. The most likely look like Georgia, although that game being on at the moment, I don't know what's happening. But Georgia and Japan look like the ones that are going to break in with the top 10. and then if Italy, very unlikely they're going to lose to Romania, but it's not impossible. Italy seem to have just found some form, and if Parise is fit, I don't think they're going to lose.
He made a big difference to their team, all right.
The other thing is that with the expansion of this, the importance of the third place position being qualification for the next World Cup,
Japan won't have to qualify for their own World Cup.
Yeah,
which
but
is good.
for a number of years, it's been talked about the introduction maybe of a bowl or play competition in the World Cup.
Yeah.
But what this third place, the guarantee that the third place offers them, it is to a certain extent, it has become the
Yes.
bowl competition, and it's meant that we're 1 week, we've got one set of fixtures left roughly, right, for the competition, and it's still competitive even between teams who aren't going to qualify for the knockouts. It is still competitive.
Yeah. And I remember maybe 8 years ago, Jeremy Guskett going on quite a major rant about the disparity between the haves and the have-nots, and that they shouldn't even be in. It should be just a top
Hello,
12.
Which boys club?
And you're never going to expand the game. And the cricket have done that. They've gone down that road, and
Yeah.
it's almost shooting themselves in the foot. Whereas
Well,
this
ever
rugby,
decreasing circles.
1/5 of the population in Japan watched their game against Samoa. I mean,
Yeah.
people thought it broke all records. Their game against South Africa broke all records. 20 million people, 26 million people watched their game against Samoa. Just think about that number: 26 million people watched Japan beat Samoa. Nothing is better for our World Cup
Yeah.
and for the next World Cup
Yeah.
and for our sport than that.
Exactly. And similarly, TB3's figures were through the roof.
Yeah.
Last weekend for the Italy match, I think there was nearly 1 million people watched it.
It peaked at it averaged at just under 1 million, and it peaked at 1.2 million.
Yeah.
The figures for the game,
A lot of people.
yeah, the figures for the game against France are expected to break all records for rugby.
So we play France at the weekend. The French selection they've seemed to have settled on their pack and their team, you know, far more than other seasons where we see them a lot of chopping and changing. San Andreas seems to have picked a fairly
Well, Flaky Freddy will be in there for a start, which he hasn't been so flaky this World Cup either. He's been playing quite
but
well.
you can name like their you can pretty much name
Their
their
pack
their
and,
back and the
and the
backs.
subs.
Yeah, but we'll go with their backs as well.
Like, so, you know, you were saying about having Henshaw and Payne
When they
waking
are
up in the
settled.
morning, like it's such a settled team. It's like, you know, there's no kind of disquiet within the French ranks because people seem to they're playing for within the team.
The one thing I would say is that sometimes we talk about the changeability of French selection, and it's always been the case to a certain extent, certainly over the last 10 to 15 years, that they've chopped and changed an awful lot. But that's tended to be during Six Nations when they come up against stronger opposition. Now, I actually think the France have a nice settled team and that they're quite happy with it. But the only thing is that they haven't played anyone yet. No more than ourselves, but for them, we're talking about them now in terms of their settled selection. It's only settled because they haven't had any reason to change it.
We seem to, under Schmitz, whether it was for Leinster or for Ireland, win the bigger games. You know, like if you think of the match against France in Paris 2 years ago when they won the Six Nations.
Clermont Auvergne.
The Clermont Auvergne game, the match in Scotland, they came out and just blew Scotland away. And it wasn't that they played, you know, running rugby from behind their own posts, but they just were more willing to attack and change the emphasis on how they attacked rather than kicking the ball away a lot. They actually ran and they used their pack to attack.
See, the question about this French team is the same question that you have to ask about every French team: is what do they do after the fourth phase, with or without the ball? What do they do after the fourth phase? Do they know what they're going to do after the fourth phase?
Well, we know what we
It's hard
hope
to
they'll
know.
do. At least Joe Schmidt knows what he hopes they'll do after we throw a few set phases at them.
Well, I'm certain the Irish team know what to do after 10 phases. I'm certain of that. I mean, there's no question of that. The question about the French is always, do they know what they're doing after the fourth phase?
Well, they might. We were defending very narrow. You could see, especially I was right up in the corner at the Italy match, and you could really see where we were being outflanked. Now we were never in massive danger. There's always at least two guys on drifting out, but you know, is that an attempt to get to sucker France into going wide a lot? Is it just mind games there? You know,
But it almost paid off because if you think back to their try that was disallowed, you know.
The other thing is, I mean, Darcy had a very good column in the Times today. Have you been reading his columns? They're
haven't seen
excellent.
that one, no.
Today's was equally as good, but he made the point about defending. It's Ireland are better off without him in the centre defending against Bastro because size. Henshaw doesn't give up the yards or doesn't give up the inches, and he doesn't give up the stones that Darce by nature of his size, gives up. Darcy always reckoned he could get a good hit on Basterrow, but he was never sure he'd be able to hold it.
Yeah.
Whereas Henshaw has the increased physicality that he cannot. Not only can he, if he can get the hit on, he will be able to hold him.
Well, hopefully.
Well, you could see it you could see the way that the Canadians had to defend against them. I mean, like they were launching themselves
Double
as
teaming.
missiles nearly to try and knock him down.
They've two big ass centres, the Canadians. I mean, Hearn actually. There's another player I thought was an excellent player during the entire tournament for the Canadian outside centre, and Blevins as well. I thought played well, but they're two big guys. You know.
I wonder if we'll see any of the Pro 12 or even you say professional leagues in Europe signing some of the players from Canada or from Georgia. You know, some of the guys that are in Fiji. It doesn't matter whatever the guys that are playing amateur rugby in their own countries.
I think some of the better Canadians will arrive in Europe next year after the Olympics, because a lot of the Canadian players are on sevens. They play. They're contracted. They are professionals. They play sevens. Guys like Hearn, like John Moonlight, etc. I said,
name.
yeah. I'll tell you one thing. I've been very impressed with Georgian backs.
Mm.
You know, nobody ever thinks about Georgian backs. Georgian backs have been pretty good now. They could be getting ripped to shreds by Namibia as we speak, but up till now they've looked pretty good. Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see how France and Ireland go. I think the battle will be won in the midfield. I think the four guys will decide how it goes.
Mm. Well, they're the only two big games this weekend: Australia, Wales, and France and Ireland. There's nothing else really shaking this weekend. South Africa are playing a minnow, and Japan are playing the USA, who played. I think that's the last game in the pool stages. Is Japan versus USA. Depending on how
England playing Uruguay.
No, that's not the last game. It's on the Saturday.
No, I'm talking about in the last weekend.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. That's a huge game, of course, for which has a lot riding on it. But apart from that, it's just us and us, France, and the other game, the Australia-Wales game. So, no.
They kept the schedule very nice. They planned it well.
Big one on Saturday, big one on Sunday.
Yeah, actually, the fixtures have panned, but the entire World Cup has been very well organised. In fairness to them,
yeah, it's been a very good World Cup.
Been a very
apart
good
from
World
England going out, which isn't good if
the
you're
only
English.
It's the only fly in the organisational ointment, but in terms of the worldwide attitude to that happening, it's actually been good for the tournament
I
as
suppose,
well.
yeah. But the
Because
thing
people
is,
have had a chortle at good old Mother Albion.
But I think it legitimises the tournament when you have a big name going out, or the first weekend when Japan beat South Africa again. And the sort of
Georgia beat Tonga.
They say there's a large percentage of people who would be kind of anti-rugby, especially from the football fraternity, who would then scoff and look down their noses at Rugby World Cup. Exactly, and like when you see,
it's better than the World Series of baseball. Come on.
But it's I agree with you. I mean, there has been that accusation that it's not really a real World Cup. I think the accusation really fits more the Rugby League World Cup just because of the nature of the organisation of the tournament. The World Cup, the Rugby World Cup, the Rugby Union World Cup is a real World Cup, and it has been proved to be a genuine World Cup this time.
Third biggest sporting event on the planet.
Yeah, it's just been
next to the Olympics and the
I mean, when you see
World
when you
Cup.
see world rankings and there's 120 odd countries playing rugby, like it means that their own union, their own federation that organises leagues and
half
matches.
of them, the three of us, would get a game on.
Well, that's fair enough. That's just the standard and quality. They still have a tournament that's
true,
a national league or a league within the country that people can. Like if you went to Zambia,
I wish
for
to
instance,
deny any rumours connecting me with the San Marino RFU.
like if you could talk out if you end up emigrating to Zambia, you could have a game at the weekend if you wanted. You might get on the national team,
There is. I mean, the game has become quite global. It has stopped in certain areas. I mean, there was a big hope that Central Africa would push on in terms of the likes of Cote d'Ivoire and Canada, or not Canada, Kenya, and they haven't. That's been disappointing.
Kenyans the big noise in sevens.
The big noise in sevens. They haven't. The idea was that because they started to become a big noise in 15s as well, but they never pushed through. And
do you remember actually in the World Cup 20 years ago there was a lad actually very badly paralysed.
Yeah, Max Brito was his name. He played rugby in France. He was from Cote d'Ivoire.
Brito.
He was. Well, what happened to him was shocking. It was a tragedy. But the game didn't develop in Central Africa for one, whether that was a reason or not, I don't know. And then you had obviously what happened in Zimbabwe is throwing that country backwards as well. So in terms of Africa too, it's really always going to be Namibia. So that's one continent that's kind of stultified. On the other hand, rugby is going on in leaps and bounds in South America, where Uruguay really had to work to be South America too, because Brazil pushed them all the way. And it's good to see that kind of development in the game.
And Russia and them were playing for the last place, weren't
Yeah,
they?
yeah.
In the competition. So Russia have actually a professional league with several 8 teams or something.
Well, Connacht will find out all about that. So they will
That's
during
right.
the Challenge Cup.
And Germany, apparently, rugby is just developing really fast in Germany, which is brilliant because they've got a lot of big lads over there, and they've got, if they could get some of the population interested in playing the game, I'd say they could have.
Germany has the facilities,
Formidable.
has the corporate structure,
It has
and
everything.
it has the
Money.
It has the money. It has everything you'd want. It'd be great if Germany could get in, and it'd be nice to have a genuine. I mean, people were talking today about promotion and relegation from the Six Nations. We're not there yet. I don't think we're there yet. In that, obviously, there's the Six
We'll
Nations.
find out when Italy play Romania.
Yeah, there's the Six Nations. Then you've got Georgia, Romania, the next best. I'm not sure if they're ready to compete with any of the big 5 or even the big 6 in Europe. But it's getting closer, and that's the important thing. The important thing isn't to promote teams too soon. The important thing is to promote
That
the
they're
teams at the
pressing.
right.
Important thing is that they're pressing.
Is that they're pressing, and that they know that there's. The important thing is that they know there's a progression pathway for them. So what the Six Nations should be saying is, we're not promoting you yet, but when one of you gets to the position, meets certain guidelines, performance guidelines, we will promote you into the
But they
tournament.
seem to drag their heels, like, I don't know, say 10 or 15 years ago actually.
They waited too long with Italy.
Waited far too long for Italy. Italy had beaten Ireland the previous 3 times from
They
80.
beat Scotland and Wales as well.
Yeah, but in I think 87, 86 and 89 they'd beaten us prior to their entry into the Six Nations in 2000. Likewise, Argentina had a great team 8 years ago at the World Cup, but they were 4 years away from entering, or 5 years actually away from entering into the Quad Nations.
Look how far they've come. They're kick-ass now. They really are.
Well, they need to get their structures fixed within their country.
Well, yeah, the biggest problem was
They're gonna have a
their own
super
union.
They
team.
wanted to remain amateur, and their Blazers didn't want the game, didn't want anyone to be professional.
I think a lot of the guys who were involved in that good team, the older guys like the Contepomis, like Pichos, have moved into positions of power within the Australian or Argentinian rugby union now, and obviously they've moved things forward. The development of the game globally is essential. We can keep playing our Six Nations or keep playing our 4 nations in the Southern Hemisphere, and there's 10 of us, and isn't it great? But at the end of the day, that's an evolutionary dead end, unless it's refreshed with fresh rugby DNA, be it from the East, be it from Eastern Europe, be it from South America, be it from Africa,
Wherever.
be it from no
North
matter where it's
America.
from. What we need is a constant stream of fresh rugby DNA. The key thing about this World Cup is meaningless. It's been a great World Cup, but it's meaningless if it doesn't have a legacy.
You can see the quality and standard increasing over even the last 8 years. There's been no murderings.
It is an expensive sport though, and if you look at the teams that have come up, like Japan, is a very wealthy country. We just mentioned Germany. If we could interest the US or Canada, that's where because it's a sport that's bloody expensive to run.
But the thing is, like,
Because the amount of people in the
the
team
2
and
big
the
sports in Canada and America are like their football, whether it's Canadian or. But once you finish your college, once actually you finish high school, unless you go on to, on a scholarship to university, you don't really play.
get to play it.
There's very little participation in football.
Yeah.
Well, that's because that's an even more expensive sport to
But-
run,
but-
with the
but,
equipment and all.
But the point is, there's no sort of, you don't just join a club and say, I'll rock up and play as a weekend warrior. You kind of, if you don't make it after 18 years of age, that's it, you're done. Whereas there has to be a huge market there to say, well, you used to love playing American football, why didn't you tog out for us?
Is there a culture of sports participation amongst young men and growing older men as in North America as there is in Europe? I mean, it's an odd fella who comes out of secondary school in Ireland
Yeah.
and doesn't go on to play even five-a-side at the weekend with his mates.
I think the gym seems to take over.
Yeah,
and they just
in
work
America
out
they
on
don't
their
have
own.
that tradition of participation in team sports after formal education finishes. I mean, in Ireland, you either play with your rugby club, you play GAA, you play soccer, you play a little bit of five-a-side, you play with your mates in whatever sport you want at whatever level you find natural. I don't think they do that in America, and I don't think they've the organisation. I don't know if the sports there are organised for participation the way that they are here. They're organised for the spectacle. But I think they're top-down sports. They're not bottom-up sports the way that they are in Europe, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, I was listening to
Soccer.
Hugo
Soccer
McNeil.
soccer is the different one. Soccer is the one,
I was
yeah.
listening to Hugo McNeil. He was talking about when he was in college. He spent a long time in college, that lad. But one of the summers he went
He
off.
repeated his leaving 3 times in Blackrock College just to play on the rugby team. Sorry, he didn't repeat 3 times. He repeated twice. Did his leaving 3 times for no other reason. He'd already, I think, had enough points to get into medicine.
Really? Didn't
Well,
do medicine,
that's the rumor, or what's the word? The myth.
The apocryphal story.
The apocryphal story. Thank you, Dave. Go on. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Well, he went off and played for a summer over in Canada, and he said like that, you know, an away match was 800 miles away, and he said he had, like, it was almost a professional lifestyle that he was living over there, going to, you know, playing matches, and but they had a thriving club scene, but in small population pockets. Wasn't sort of in Toronto and Montreal. It was in smaller towns, and you know, it was 800 miles was the nearest rivals.
Well, you see, up until when Hugo would have been, you know, an active rugby player, Canada were, you know, not a terrible rugby team. They were a pretty decent team at that stage because it was the amateur era. So it was easy for a country as big, well, not easy, but a country as big as Canada with a relatively large population could get 15 or 20 guys. I'm reading a history of a global history of the. I've forgotten the name of the book already. A global history of the oval game by Collins at the moment. It's a great book. I'd recommend it to everyone. And it just shows how the game developed in slightly different ways, but a lot of it was the same in all across, if you like, the world that England touched, including obviously Canada, North America, guys from rugby schools and various different schools going out. But once the game went professional, the break happened, and the game went off. The traditional rugby playing countries got stronger, and the countries where rugby was a 4th, 5th, 6th sport, they really dropped off. Like, for example, Canada. But now what we're seeing is the professionalism has fed its way back into those countries, and those countries are getting stronger again. And the money generated by the World Cup, this is what I mean by legacy, the money generated by the World Cup that World Rugby uses to promote, we'll say, a global, it's not a sport I have much time for, but the global 7 squads means that you have professional rugby players in countries that can't support professional rugby, and that's important.
Absolutely.
Well, John, you're heading over to Cardiff at the weekend.
I think that's been established.
Good man. Enjoy. If anyone else is going over, enjoy that too, and have a safe trip. And thanks a million for watching. Cheers.